Here's a question from Prodigy, and he's friend of the show, Crucible Scientist, and he's really getting to the heart of it. What do accuracy, target acquisition, and aim assist mean for the actual performance of a gun? What exact behaviors will a gun perform differently when aiming and firing with more or less of each of these? Specifically, how does the Sandbox team modify these behaviors to balance guns?
Yeah, I read this one on the forum. I'm like equal parts nervous and excited to talk about this.
That's
this is like
he does that to you.
Like I'm putting on the glasses and the nerd hat. If anyone wants to go like make a sandwich real quick and come back, like yeah, this is a juicy one. All of those things that he is asking about are buried in the range stat. So your range stat does a lot for your gun that a lot of players probably don't realize it does. Imagination hat time. Everybody put on your imagination hats. Boop. Your range can be visualized. We actually have debugging tools to look at it in game, but your range can be visualized as a cone that radiates out of the barrel of your gun. So the better your range, the further that cone goes out and the narrower it is, if that makes sense. Within that cone, we define all the things that define aim assist, your accuracy, and it is like also the more like commonly understood range things like your damage fall off, start, and stop. How soon we start helping you with that stuff, and then how soon we drop off and just say you're out of range with this gun, like you can't do anything with it. So accuracy is part of the range cone. We have basically two concepts of accuracy. We have your initial accuracy and we have your final accuracy. Every gun starts with a smaller initial accuracy. So this is the first bullet you fire out of the gun. And then there is a stat that says after you fire this bullet, bloom out that cone a little bit and then as you keep firing shots, there's a decay time on how long it takes for that cone to reset for your accuracy to come back to initial. And then if you fire again before it resets, then we push it out a little bit more, right? So if you're spamming with like a hand cannon, that cone is going to bloom out real fast and it's going to stay wide. And then if you relax and let off, then it's going to come back down to very accurate to your initial value. And so we always try to have your initial accuracy be pretty tight for all weapons. So we always want you to feel like, yeah, when you take your time and line up a shot, that first shot you fire is almost always going to hit. Unless you screw up or unless the guy like jukes at the last minute or something like that. So that's accuracy and final accuracy. And that primarily affects hip fire. We tend to intentionally kind of penalize hip fire because we want the game to be more about like going to iron sights, in and out of iron sights, like because that's a point where we can actually slow your movement and ask you to take a little bit more time and care with lining up your shots. I think emotionally it's a little bit more like visceral and immersive experience to sort of feel like you're bringing the gun up to your cheek and shooting than it is to just run around shooting from hip all the time. So yeah, that's absolutely like an aesthetic choice that we made. And it also, it does some good stuff for combat too. I think it helps slow combat down a little bit. Like if you're the most accurate when you're not moving very fast and you have your gun in iron sights or aiming down sights, then that helps you stay somewhat rooted to a location, right? You can't be jumping around using your movement abilities, like blinking through the air and shooting at the same time. Like that's just a little bit more fast-paced and hectic. And that's something we tried in the initial development of Destiny. We chose this route because we thought it played a little bit better. But anyway, so accuracy, like generic accuracy, is mostly when you're shooting from hip, and then we also have. I'm going to use the term ADS. It's the term we use here, but it's when you're holding left trigger. Like ADS stands for aim down sights. So all the weapons have it. Anytime you're holding left trigger, you're aiming down sights. We have a different accuracy stat for that. And it basically works the same way, but the bloom is like super clamped and it's pretty tight because again, we're asking players to slow down a little bit, take your time aiming your shots, and that's how we're rewarding your precision is when you're going into the aim down sights mode. So we don't penalize it that much, right? So your accuracy bonuses are mostly going to be from hip.
So we're visualizing this in terms of the range cone and the bloom. Do I guess sort of all of those different accuracy variables, are those tied to the range stat? Are they independent variables? Are they tied to specific archetypes? Is every gun a little bit different?
Yes. The answer, yeah. It's a yes. It's really complex, but yeah, every weapon archetype basically has a band of accuracy values that exist within a band of range values that all exist on a big script spreadsheet that I have control over. And, and so basically when you have a weapon that is like, range stat 40, whatever, I'll just pick a value that looks it up on this sheet and it says, okay, for range value 40, you get this. And then, so I define the upper band and the lower band and every step in the middle, for each weapon archetype. So each weapon archetype has this big sheet of this, basically the stat and what it, how it affects your weapon. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, the answer to all your questions is yes. Like all that stuff is incorporated. To quickly divert a little bit, some feedback we get a lot, and this is something I totally have sympathy for the players, is that people feel like we're too vague with a lot of our stats and how they're helping players and what they mean. And some of that is intentional, because if we showed you everything, it would just be like, it'd play like a different game. It'd basically be a numbers game. And that's not what we want. Like there's a point where we're asking players to trust us a little bit. Like we've boiled up a whole bunch of stuff that work with your range stat, and we're presenting it to you as range. We're asking you to care about range, and we're asking you to trust us that we're gonna make that play good, right? And we're gonna make that stat matter. But at the same time, there are also some technical limitations on our part too. Like if you think about the tooltip, when you hover over an exotic weapon, all the information we show you what type of weapon it is, we show you the icon, we show you like a handful of stats, we show you the perks, we have like some lore, we have like the name of the gun, the damage type. Like there's just so much crap that we have to cram in that little window that
you can't be throwing more numbers.
Wait, you don't want to tag 20 more numbers onto that, please?
Well, so I do. Like I'm like the weapons designer guy, like with my hand up in the corner, like, hey, can I please add accuracy to this? And like all the other guys are like, no, like, do you see all this stuff we have to show players?
Beautiful.
And I'm like,
why would you ruin it?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, there's a little bit of like presentation limitations that we have there, and just general like memory limitations too. Just like there's only so much that the game can handle that we throw in the UI before it just tells us to go away.
So for us though, when we look at it, we should see that range stat as not just, a number for the gun that says range. That is range as modified by the accuracy values, all these different things. We can sort of see that as a composite in that final range bar that we get shown.
Correct.
Oh my God, you do not understand how many people's minds you are blowing right now.
Oh man,
so many people happy right now. I keep checking to make sure we're recording. Well, target acquisition and aim assist.
Yeah, so those are basically the same thing. Like when we were developing the game, we weren't sure how candid we wanted to be with players about aim assist. Like that's totally taboo to a lot of people to just like throw it in the game is just like yeah, here's the aim assist value for your gun, and it kind of breaks the immersion a little bit too. Like you want to have some like cool fictional flair, so it's like it's not aim assist, it's target acquisition, right? Like this scope helps you with target acquisition. Like that sounds cooler, and it sounds less like hey, I'm a designer turning a knob for you over here. Like it sounds like part of the game and part of the world. So yes, target acquisition is. I think most of the internet has figured this out already. It is directly the thing that is the aim assist setting in your range bar. So remember that range is like one big, huge bar that is like one big, giant number of a stat, but there's a whole bunch of little things in there, and that we've made a couple little perks, like anything that affects accuracy, anything that affects target acquisition can actually like touch that little part of the range bar independent of the range stat itself. So we've made a couple perks and we've occasionally like scopes and stuff that give you a slight bonus to your target acquisition, which is your aim assist. And generally the way that the perk is going to give you a buff is we just like give you like a +5 or a +10 to where it would be on the range stat value. So this is kind of Bungie's secret sauce to how they make shooters feel so good. It's one of the many things, right? Like you see you're getting shot from the side, from the flank, and you can like take your hand cannon and like whip around like, 90, 100 degrees and just like land on a guy and get a shot off. So yeah, if your range is higher, your aim assist is going to be better. There's a point where we can define optimum range or optimal range, and then there's a point where we can say, okay, we'll start fall off here, and then the end of your cone is like way out here. Any target that is within the fall off to the end is going to get sort of the less than optimal experience. And so this speaks to one of the auto rifle changes that we made a while ago, and the thing that we did for 2.0 that was like, for us as developers, was really exciting, was we pulled damage fall off out of range. And so one of the reasons that auto rifles got hit so hard was because we wanted to bring, initially, before 2.0, we wanted to bring the effective range of auto rifles in and have damage fall off start a lot sooner. But to do that, we had to bring in the entire range stat way in. And it didn't feel good. Like you get to these like sort of like medium to long range encounters with the auto rifle, and like it's really hard to like just even land a shot and hit a guy. And when you were, it was doing like 2 or 3 points of damage. And this is not long range encounters. Like this is like, like what we would mostly consider like a medium range encounter. We wanted to bring them down a little bit, right? And it was like, we can either leave the damage high and pull the range way in, but make these long range encounters like kind of suck, and basically make it feel useless if you were trying to compete at like scout, like long pulse rifle range to scout rifle range, or we could leave the range intact and just turn down the base damage. And that was the option that I went for end of the day, because I think I said this in the patch notes too. I wanted to preserve the feeling of building a stable pulse rifle, like when you were finding a good gun and building that stat package that like perfectly like sets up this like dream auto. I think it's a pulse rifle earlier, but this dream auto rifle that is like super stable and you're able to hit targets at long range. Like it feels really good when you can do these long range encounters with an assault rifle. And I thought the better thing to do was just pull down the base damage. That ended up having a pretty significant impact on the meta. Like people just abandoned auto rifles after that. So that's a big reason why we wanted to bring them back up in 2.0.
I think this really explains, like, there is so much that goes into your weapon rebalancing, and it's not an easy on and off switch.
I want nothing more than to be able to talk to each one of these guys on the level that I talk to you guys, that I'm talking to you guys about this stuff right now. Like, I just want to kind of like shine a light on just like all the moving parts that are going on here. And you can't do that on Facebook. You can't do that on a message board. You can't do that on Twitter. Like, you need to have
can't do it on a weekly update.
Yeah. It's like you need to have a back and forth conversation where you can just like take the time, dig into the guts of like how all this stuff works. That's why I call it a plate of spaghetti, man. It's this huge pile of nonsense, and you just sort of like have to make a game fun. It's hard, but it's awesome.
I need like a moment to process all of that. I'll definitely be listening to that a few times. I think you really did just open a doorway for a lot of people to just go exploring.